Negotiators are racing to raise the debt ceiling and avoid a catastrophic default. President Biden left the G7 dinner in Japan early to get an update from his team on this, and he's directed them to continue pressing for a bipartisan agreement. Let's bring in ABC's Elizabeth Schulze at the White House and ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill with more on that. Jay, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says they're making progress, but they aren't there yet. What's the latest on the negotiations?
Yeah, we just got breaking news on that exact front, Diane. So there are negotiations ongoing right now today here in the Capitol with proxies for President Biden and proxies for Speaker McCarthy. And the primary Republican proxy in that room is a representative from Louisiana named Garrett Graves. And he just walked out of that room where the negotiations are going on. And he said, he told reporters in the hallway there, including our Gabe Ferris, that the talks are, quote, paused, and said what the White House is asking for in these negotiations right now is, quote, unreasonable. So not a good sign for the current status of these talks right now on Friday going into this weekend. It's unclear if these talks will continue right now into the weekend. We don't know the answer to that. What we do know is that Representative Graves just walked into Speaker McCarthy's office right now. Speaker McCarthy, by all accounts, is not here at the Capitol, but his staff is. So a sign that talks, as Representative Graves puts it, are paused as we go into this weekend, and we are very much in crunch time.
Elizabeth, what kind of a reaction do you expect from the White House on this, and how is President Biden managing these negotiations while overseas?
Well, this definitely goes against what the White House has been saying about the progress of the talks, which they said there have been steady progress over the past 24 hours. We know that the president left that G7 dinner early to get an update on how these negotiations were going. And he also had a separate call late last night, Diane, in which the White House said that there was progress on a lot of key agreements to get to a bipartisan deal on the budget. Though in that same readout, the White House did say that the president emphasized the need to continue protecting essential programs for Americans. This is a nod to one of the really big sticking points over those new work requirements for some federal aid programs. That is something that we understand there has not been an agreement on, at least up until this point publicly. So potentially that could be a setback as far as what sides, where they can really find this common ground on the budget talks. And really, it's hard to understate just how much the clock is ticking. Hard to overstate, Diane, how much the clock is ticking here. The president is expected to give an update publicly in a press conference on Sunday morning from Japan, just to talk about how much progress has been made. But if the talks aren't going on as have been hoped and portrayed through the weekend, that would obviously have some serious updates there, Diane.
Jay, McCarthy says they need a deal before the end of the weekend in order to push it through Congress in time. So what does that mean, particularly now with these talks paused?
Right. The initial hurdle is getting a deal in the first place, Diane, as we've been talking about. But even if they can get to a deal by Monday, that deal still has to pass the House of Representatives and the Senate. And we're on the clock with the legislative timeline here because the X date is in early June by all accounts. And there's limited legislative time where both the House and Senate are in between now and June. I'll give you an example. It's Friday. Both the House and Senate are off today, and the House is back next week, but the Senate is in recess. They're standing ready to be called back in an emergency format to come back and vote on something debt ceiling-wise. But by all accounts, they're off next week, the Senate. So that's why McCarthy said earlier that he needs a deal by the end of this week, potentially by Monday, in order to get it through the House of Representatives and then give it the time it needs to get through the Senate to, in theory, pass in both chambers and be signed by the president. But that's also assuming that Kevin McCarthy doesn't have any resistance within his own party from further right Republicans to pass any kind of a debt ceiling deal and doesn't have to go to Democrats to get those votes, which could make situation even longer because of the need for McCarthy to have to whip votes both in his party and on the other side of the aisle. So we are very much not near the goal line right now.
Still a ways to go. Elizabeth Schulze, Jay O'Brien, thank you.
All right, so that's relevant. Before I begin, I want to start off by giving our praise and glory to Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakudash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations unto the elect. Alright, the news clip that was played earlier, to a lot of people, it may just seem like It's nothing very too important. But in fact, this is actually a very important, and I would advise you brothers and everybody to keep track closely to this next move, as America wants um more time or more space for their debt. Okay, we know that America is what I believe it was around the trillions. Okay, but they're trillions in debt. Alright, it's just because America has been stealing. America has been able to play others back, and that's why America is going to be judged because of its iniquity against the Heavenly Father Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Okay, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna try to they're gonna go into a deep depression, to another one. Okay, because of the fact they won't be able to pay everything back, and they're gonna go online currency. Okay, we know exactly what happens next after that online currency, that MOTB. Okay, now America has been wicked towards the Heavenly Father, to say the least. Okay, stealing, robbing, they've been putting us through hell, right? The whole land of America was built off of slavery, off of the Israelites' back. When you really think about it and look back on it, who is the hardest workers right now? So-called Mexicans. Who was enslaved back, um, or who was known for being enslaved? So-called black people, right? Who did, who, who stole this land initially? Or who did they steal the land from initially? So-called Native Americans. That's why we say you Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans, so-called, are the true people of the Bible. Okay, and it's more apparent now what they're trying to do. Okay, they want to chip you. They want to, you know what? Revelations 13 and 16. He causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. Slocking. Alright, so they're gonna want to put this chip somewhere in you. And when you take that chip, there is no repenting. Once you take it, you're a goner. You're gonna be nuke food. You're gonna be fuel to the fire. Verse 7. That no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Hear his wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 600. His cords in six. Chai Sai Stigma. And remember back in 2020 when we was pushing that this whole C19 was was something to get you off track. It was something that it was happening, that it was coming. We pushed it, and no one believed us. And now look, okay, and that whole 19 thing was he put America even into more debt because of all the money they was giving, all them stimmy checks you received. You know, little you know that's putting you more into debt. And America crawled themselves into this deep hole and they're gonna try to get themselves out. And how they're gonna get themselves out with the MOTB? They're gonna go virtual. Soon the dollar bill won't mean shit. Think about it. 20 years ago, 20 years ago, well, not even that long ago, 20 years ago, $1 was worth so much more than it is today. You can't buy it. Name one thing you could buy with $1 today. You can't buy shit with $1. Alright? Back then you could buy all type of shit with $1. Right now, $1 is worth mere pennies. It ain't even real currency. You know? It ain't real, it ain't even real currency. It's fake. It's just a fucking paper. And soon there's gonna be literal no currency. It's all gonna be fucking virtual. Alright? So Lord, when this is edifying in any sorts of way, I want to give all praise on words Yahweh. Bless me, Shalom.